I'm Dylan, and join me as we look back on the rich history of doom metal and its sister sounds based on the recounted tales of its followers. Every week, we'll have a different guest to spin their yarn. You can visit the website at diaryofdoom.com, follow us on Instagram, like us on Facebook, follow the podcast on diaryofdoom.podbean.com, and subscribe and listen to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify and whatever other sketchy fucking podcast network you might stream from. And if you have a question or whatever, you can fire off an email to diaryofdoom1968@gmail.com. Last November was the first time in a year and a half that I had set foot inside St. Vitus Bar, my home away from home, as I like to call it. Of course, it was weird. It's still kind of weird. Not because it's St. Vitus, but because the world is fucking weird. But that's besides the point, I guess. As I recall, I took an alternative route that involved walking over the Pulaski Skyway Bridge. The dimly lit stairs up to the bridge, nestled snugly in a warehouse loading dock area, looked about as inviting as, well, a warehouse loading dock area. Needless to say, I did wind up being approached, but it was by a fellow concert attendee, and suddenly we both felt better to be around one another as we walked to St. Vitus. We parted ways at the entrance, and I met up with my other friend who was attending. The two of us shared a liking for Portrayal of Guilt and Headliner Uniform, who's nothing to scoff at, but I made sure to tell my friend to get there for the opener, Body Void, a band I wound up including in my year-end best for 2021, and it wound up in his as well. So that being said, I'm very happy to welcome Janys-Iren Faughn to welcome to your band.
Thank you, finally.
You finally made it.
I'm finally welcome.
Welcome to Diary of Doom, and Janys plays bass in Body Void and also makes what I assume is strange pedal noise in a side project called Entresol, and runs Flossless booking for all your independent operation needs.
That pretty much sums it up.
And you're at the moment currently based out of Vermont, right?
Sort of. I'm here part-time because the band is based here. Pretty much the rest of my life is in Eugene, Oregon, so I tell people I drive 3,000 miles for band practice, it's kind of a joke, but it's also true.
So the album I mentioned before was Bury Me Beneath This Rotting Earth. But from my understanding, you did not play on that album. So
I only provided noise for that record, which is kind of the current arrangement in Body Void is that I'm the live bassist in the studio. Willow plays bass on that record, and at this point moving forward I'll be doing noise, electronics, atmospherics basically in the studio, and then live I'll handle bass. Obviously,
this is not where you've cut your teeth and whatnot, so I guess my greater question is where were you before this, but even before that, what's your musical background? Did you have a musical upbringing, or did you just sort of find music on your own?
I didn't grow up in music by any means, but I kind of came into metal backwards. I actually started playing guitar in high school, acoustic guitar, because I enjoyed singing, and it was actually a means to basically I didn't have ambition to play. I didn't want to shred. I wasn't really into riffs. I wanted to create the groundwork to sing over top of. So I kind of became the annoying person in the corner at the party playing acoustic. And that slowly over the course of a handful of trial and errors turned into a weird folk noise project that now is that's the groundwork for Entresol, which is depending on the release, anywhere between ambient and death industrial. I really like the idea of the freedom of it being a one-person project where if I want the next album to be klezmer, it could be. It probably won't be, but it could be. Because there's literally no one to tell me no. I'm if I get a wild hair to try something, I'm just going to. It might not ever see the light of day, but if I decide that it works, or that, people should have to hear it, I can release it. But yeah, for the most part, I would, for lack of a better place to put it, I guess it's a noise project at this point.
When did you start getting into that, and so that was in high school and whatnot? So you said you found out about metal backwards. That's kind of an interesting approach to it. I mean, I guess that's sort of how for lack of a better word, sort of an outsider approach, someone that's what's this heavy metal thing you speak of?
Sure. I mean, I grew up in a super small town, and the scene at my high school, like my initial exposure to metal was like very much like the late 90s small town, like dudes in jacked up pickup trucks with like a Garth Brooks sticker and a Metallica sticker. You know what I mean? Where
Ugh.
like the dudes who beat me up in high school were metal kids, but they were like the wrong ones.
Right.
Right.
They're more like rednecks.
Sure, absolutely. And I mean, that's kind of the exposure that there was to metal in rural Oregon, where I grew up. So I ended up, I mean, like in high school, I was a punk. Like that was kind of more my wheelhouse. And in my late 20s, I started like a zine and blog and did a lot of music reviews and got into like booking shows, and it just kind of became this like whirlwind thing where like I started this project called Exiled in Eugene that was like a zine and blog, and we threw shows and just kind of like a all things DIY media outlet kind of. And it didn't last, but while it like during the 5 years that it existed, I ended up getting a job as a booker at a space, and kind of fumbled into metal through like some of the people that I was working with, specifically some of the volunteers who were doing reviews for the publication. So we'd have these like folding parties where we were like making zines and newsletters and flyers. We also did like a flyering service, and so we'd have these like once a week like sessions where we'd sit down and work on like the paper end of things and just listen to like we just take turns listening to albums. And these two brothers who were volunteers, kind of sort of single-handedly got me into metal. That, and then like the actual booking gig, the first space that I booked at was like a coffee shop that was just known for being the only place in town that booked black metal. So like I kind of just had to like adjust. I got like quite the crash course where it was like I was the one willing to do the thing, and I ended up like stepping into this whole world that it's not that I didn't know it existed, I just wasn't part of it. Slowly but surely the exposure kind of, I don't know, not that I was like anti-metal, it just became a thing that I grew into it, I guess.
That makes sense. I mean, I think there's probably a lot of people who have gone that route, and whatever their background might be, and they kind of are like, oh man, this is like a pretty cool. Well, I don't know. I mean, at that time, it might have been a little dicier, but like, now it's like, I feel like things are certainly far from like, perfect, I guess, if you're talking on like a sort of like a societal level
sure.
and whatnot. But that's probably like the way a lot of people have come into it to sort of like explore. And that makes sense to me. Was there like an album that, those brothers like turned you on to, or were any like particular album that made you kind of start thinking about it in a different way, where you're like, oh, this is actually a lot deeper than it seems?
Well, I mean, there was a summer where they introduced me to Cough and Windhand,
Mm-hmm.
and that was kind of like a tipping point where I was like, oh wait, like something just kind of clicked for me, and I started looking into things independently. I also got to see Hell for the first time that year, which was big. I think they're from next door. They're from like literally like an hour away from Eugene. Seeing Hell and Mizmor, and I think I actually missed that show, but yeah, the access to like that kind of metal in the Northwest is kind of nice. Like that town it's on the 5, so you
Mm-hmm.
get a lot of stuff comes through that like the town would be too small, but because they're on their way through, Wolves in the Throne Room played there for like $5. You know what I mean? So like the access, and again, this would have been like that Wolves show would have been like, I don't know, 2013 or something. So it's been a minute. But Cough and Windhand in particular, though, were a big like entry point for me.
The Cough influence makes a lot of sense. I'm like,
Yeah, I can see that.
Like, you
Sure.
know what I mean? They're awesome. I don't know what their status is currently, which is a little upsetting. But last I heard, there were some issues.
Yeah.
So we'll see what happens. Oh, I remember what I was going to say. I remember, and I think I've already like probably repeated it on here, but I remember hearing on another podcast, like with another interview, I forget who it was, but one of them was like, I don't know, it was somebody like maybe from like Black Tusk or Whores or something like that. And one of them was like, oh yeah, I remember Wolves in the Throne Room. I knew those guys when they were dirty fucking hippies.
Well, I mean, isn't that like an element of Cascadian black metal kind of across the across
Oh,
the board?
totally.
So many bands where there's the one guy who just won't fucking wear shoes on stage. Um, I was super lucky, like booking that coffee shop, the Wandering Goat. I got to see bands like shit. I booked Bellwitch there, in
Nice.
not even 100 cap space before they were the Bellwitch we know and love. I mean
Hmm.
they were already established regionally, but it was still at that point where everyone at the door is like, no, but I know them. We're friends. Like, do I really have to pay the $5? You know?
As opposed to like, oh man, these goddamn servicing fees. I guess I'll
Right.
suck it up.
Sure, right. Uh, but that show in particular, there was this. Oh, it was so precious. This dude worked at Voodoo Donuts, and the Eugene location had just opened, and he made this giant like Bell Witch logo donut to give to the
Oh
dudes.
my god, that's awesome.
And he got so drunk he ended up like, I guess, chickening out and just leaving the donut on a table. And I don't think they ever saw it. It was like in the box still at the end of the night when we were cleaning up. And it was just like super tragic because I remember seeing this guy like sloppy drunk earlier in the night. Just like, oh man, he came here for like kind of, we had one mission and it just didn't happen.
And then everyone was like, man, that sucks.
Yeah. Free donut.
Just like everyone's just like, damn, this is so good. It's too bad
Right.
Bellwitch is never gonna see it.
Right. Yeah.
I wonder if he ever like wound up. I'd be like, did you ever get that donut? And they're like, what
Right.
donut?
What donut? It never made it there. Yeah.
That's awesome. I love
It's
that.
bummer. Yeah.
So obviously you were more attracted to like the harsher sides of the heavy side of music, and is
Definitely.
like inevitably that's gonna like lead you down a road where you're gonna probably find yourself more interested in stuff that's like based out of like noise and feedback and
Sure.
relay, and there's
Yeah.
no fucking shortage of that these days.
Definitely. Definitely.
Like what I'm always like kind of interested like what draws people to that section of music, because it does have like a weird crossover between like heavy metal fans and like people who just like all kinds of music or like more experimental and whatnot. So like I've always been kind of interested in like what is it about it that like makes it click with you, like what is it that like sets off your synapses in your brain.
I just have like a thing for pops and crackles, man. Like seriously, like people will like, I've had friends be like, yeah, when you're working on a riff and you just like, sometimes you just loop it and listen to it back. And I'm like, I've never done that. I will absolutely like have like a fuck up where like I'll get like a weird sound out of my instrument and then I'll loop that and then I'll slow it down and then I'll put headphones on and then that turns into like a backing track or like an element of a track. But like actual riffs are hard for me. It's always been like something that kind of tickles my brain, or like, I don't know, it's super fucking boring and really stereotypical, but like honestly, like if you could just distort Rice Krispies, I'd be happy about it. Like
That's dope.
I could listen to that for hours and have basically.
Is there like a meditative or some kind of aspect to it that you get out of it?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Like I will straight up, like if I'm playing with new sounds, sometimes I'll build, not exactly a noise wall, but I'll get to the point where there's like, I feel like texturally it's good enough to sit with for a while, and I'll just let it loop, and then I'll like turn down the lights and I'll light some candles and I'll just sit and close my eyes and just like sit with it. And if 20 minutes later I'm okay with it still going, then that's something I want to work with. And then I'll like, I'll try and like bounce those stems from whatever whatever variety of pedals are looping them.
You're like
And
that's a
okay,
song.
this is a thing to build from, and we'll see what happens with that. But yeah, that's usually how it starts. As far as like, there was a point in in Entresol where like things were kind of guitar driven, and it definitely tipped over to like building a sound bed, and now I'll write a song on top of the sound bed. And eventually that just kind of became like, well, what if the sound beds were most of the song? Uh, and sometimes that's the case, and sometimes I want, some angry synth or something. But the sound bed parts are kind of like, that's where it all builds from. taking that into Body Void has been interesting because it's literally the opposite, where Willow comes to me with like at least midis for a complete song. It is like, all right, now put noise over this. And to a certain extent, it's like, okay, well, here's a bunch of layers, and then you do with them what makes sense for you, which is kind of how we tackled Bury Me, because I'd actually done my first tour with them. I kind of stepped in as fill-in bassist. We did a UK tour, and then I went back home to Oregon, and then lockdown happened. And so we were on opposite coasts, and they're like, well, we're going to record this album and we want you on it, but COVID had just kind of become a thing. And they're like, we're not going to ask you to travel. Are you interested in, doing noise for a track or for the whole record? And that just kind of snowballed. So that's kind of become like where I come into the creative process now. Is there will be a song that like Willow kind of deems not finished, but like at the point where it's like, I'm ready to present this to the band. And then I kind of compose around the existing tracks. The upcoming record might look a little different. We're still kind of hashing that out, but that seems to be the approach for the last two releases anyway.
That's really interesting. I imagine like after you like drop like a layer of noise on it, that could even like unlock another thing.
Sure. Yeah.
Oh, hold on, we got to fix that. We got to change that.
What if? Yeah, exactly.
Make that louder.
Right. With Bury Me, it was like, we're just gonna add this thing to the existing album, kind of. With the new EP, noise was more of part of the plan from the get-go. So the approach was a little bit different, but still kind of like, here's a finished song, add noise to it. The next record, the way that Willow is writing is like leaving specific space, not leaving spaces, but like noises in mind. You know what I mean? Where it's like, this part will have like kind of a noise freak out or a swell. Mm-hmm. So they're now writing with that in mind, which is cool. We'll see what that ends up looking like. I'm not really sure yet.
Color me excited. I mean, I actually just listened to the new EP today beforehand, because probably refamiliarize myself, know what I'm talking about.
Sure, yeah.
For anyone who doesn't know, it's called "Burn the Homes of Those Who Seek to Control Our Bodies." A classically long name for a metal album, which sure. I imagine is exactly what it says it's about, telling a bunch of fuckhead politicians and Christian nationalists to keep their dirty hands off trans people or whatever targeted group it is they've like trained sure. their sights on. Or if I'm wrong, please tell me.
No, you pretty much nailed it. But no, we got to work with Ben Greenberg, from Uniform on that one, and Ben's amazing. Made the guitars sound super big. Definitely understood exactly what we were going for. Was really excited about like more noise, bigger noise, bring it a little closer to the forefront. Like, he texturally understood what we were going for, which is rad. It helps that he's like, he's got that he's in a noise adjacent band, and makes that kind of stuff himself as well. But yeah, he's phenomenal. I didn't actually, again, I was on the West Coast, so I ended up sending stems and wasn't in the room with him. But yeah, Ben's rad. Yeah, looking forward to working on a full length with him.
I imagine. And I kind of felt like it didn't sound like the prior one, which is like, well, obviously it sounds like it, but I felt like maybe it just had like a little bit more of a sort of like a rhythm, or like something like that. I wouldn't call it like a groove. Maybe it was like just a little more riffy throughout. But like really just like these massive like swells, and like the layering sounds amazing on it. Like, yeah, it's awesome. If you haven't listened to it, go listen to it. It rules. And, kind of speaking even about, you're talking about Uniform. I mean, that was my first show back to St. Vitus, and that was like a full fucking tour. And then with Betrayal of Guilt too. And then there was just this insanely long Primitive Man 10-year tour that had fucking Candlemass on one of the stops, which is the one I got to see. I got very lucky with that.
That was insane. again, I wasn't out here with the band at the time that was initially, and that show in particular was, or rather our involvement was initially announced. So
Mhm.
I was just like staying with friends in Eugene, and I looked, I'm like, I wake up, I have my coffee, I'm like in my boxers, and I'm like looking at Instagram, and I'm like, oh, we're playing with Candlemass. Okay. Whose fucking life am I living? Uh, yeah, that was a very pleasant surprise. And that show was rad. It was like super, super cool. They were all really like kind and very inviting.
That's good.
Yeah, it was really neat.
I imagine it was just like, hey, you want to just like jump on this?
That's the impression that I got, is that they're like, either the invite was extended to Primitive Man, or it was just like, hey, what if we scooped up the whole package? I mean, in the end, the whole package ended up opening. So, just like a massive six band bill.
Yeah, I mean, it
But
was like Elizabeth Color Wheel and Mortiferium and fucking who else? Jarhead Fertilizer.
yeah,
I'm probably I think I'm forgetting one of the other bands, Body Void.
yeah, yeah. No, that was nuts. Very, very cool. Very cool experience.
I was very excited. I got to see Elizabeth Color Wheel. I wasn't super familiar with them, so I wasn't sure what to expect, and I was like, wow, that is a very unique show. Really cool fucking band.
That is a great way to like experience that band for the first time, is like going in kind of like cold and having no idea, and then all of a sudden like Lane is like on top of the bar screaming and kicking pint glasses or something. Just like
With an
she's
umbrella.
like the whole band is like the presence of that band is so dynamic. Yeah, they're incredible.
So kind of like getting it back to you, you're talking about being on other, sides of the country and whatnot. So like, and being in Vermont, like you seem to have like sort of a migratory nature to yourself. Like, have you lived in a lot of places?
Funny story. No, not really. I'm from Oregon. I grew up there. Until my first Entresol tour, I'd been to like maybe 3 states. Something just happened in my 30s where like I don't really have like an answer for it. Like all of a
Mm-hmm.
sudden, like after the first Entresol tour, like something lit a fire under my ass, and it's just like I just want to see everything. Like I don't know. Part of it is just like I think this is like lower class, working class problem of like not really being able to afford traveling unless it's for work, or not really getting to see the world, but just spending a little bit of time outside of the Northwest. Like I just wanted more of it. And I mean, touring, especially touring solo, where like I would route tours in a way where I'd play a show about every 3 hours of driving. With Entresol, it's basically me and a pedal board on a keyboard stand. It's really minimal, and the overhead ends up being really low. So I could, and my job is remote, or can be remote. Emails and stuff can be remote, so I could be gone for a month and only cover like 5 or 6 states, and just like see a bunch of small towns, play a shit ton of shows. If even if the payout was awful, 30-40 bucks is enough gas to get to the next place and hit a Taco Bell or something. You know what I mean? So like, yeah, I don't know. I just it's kind of started with that, and then with lockdown, my partner. Well, I'm a non-monogamous person. Both of my partners left Eugene as part of their as part of their collective COVID plans, I guess. One's job took them to Arizona.
Mm-hmm.
One ended up in grad school in Illinois. And then I got furloughed from my job, so I ended up buying a van and was just like, you know what? I'm gonna live in this van, and I'm gonna go camp, and I'm gonna go see ghost towns, and I'm just gonna like, if I'm gonna be broke anyway, I might I might as well like see some shit while I'm doing it. So I took what unemployment the government was willing to give me, and I just went on like an almost 2 year adventure. Like this, moving in with the band now is actually the first time I've had a mailing address in 2 years. Uh,
Wow.
so, yeah, it's been an interesting, like lots of ups and downs. I was working on, well, it's not finished yet. I'm working on a book. It started out as like a guide to ghost towns, and slowly morphed into a weird, like, it's now it's a horror novel, but it's like an alternate reality horror novel that starts with that premise of two people working on this guide to ghost towns, but one of
Oh,
them is
interesting.
maybe haunted a little bit in the process. But that's hopefully will be out sometime next year. We'll see. Some friends up in out in Portland are tentatively publishing it. I'm not going to say names yet because it's not 100% confirmed. I don't want to put them. I don't want to put them like publicly on blast. It's like now you're on the hook for this. Potentially, it's being published by some friends next year.
Well, that's cool. How would you define alternate reality horror? That's pretty interesting. Like I'm a pretty like I won't say I'm the biggest horror buff, but I love
Sure.
horror movies. Probably my top genre of film. How exactly does that work in like a novel form? Because like I mean I remember like there was like I remember like the last alternate and this is so stupid because I know there's like alternate reality goggles and all like the
like
shit, but this isn't really
like virtual reality.
Yeah, but that's like fully a different thing.
Sure,
In terms of alternate reality, I remember like 9 Inch Nails did a really long one leading up to one of their albums where it was like you would like literally like they'd like hide things around the country.
Okay, cool.
Music, so not like bad things.
No, bad things. It's a shoe. It's filled with pudding. I'm not sure why
that would be if David Lynch was their like marketing director. He'd be like, we'll get a shoe and put some pudding in it. It'll really throw him for a loop.
Totally. Okay, so functionally the book is functionally I am the protagonist of the book. There's definitely like a moniker used instead. But you have this person who's going out and they're visiting ghost towns, and then you have this other person who's back in Eugene who's they're kind of like the historian who does there's the field researcher, which is my character, the protagonist, whatever, and then you have the other character who's like the historian who does all the research on the locales. All of these places are places that exist. A lot of the content in the book is factual, but there's a fictional story going on. So the line between reality and fiction is very blurred. The characters are working together on a website that supposedly like crowdfunded, like launched the website community launched a crowdfund, like a crowdfund project to launch this book. And so basically what the reader is reading is this book that is like the end project of these two fictional characters. The website totally exists. I went ahead and launched it. So this fictional website is out there. There's little Easter eggs, or a few little Easter eggs around the internet that I don't want to give out yet. That are content from the book that exists in the real world for people to find. It's kind of like I don't know if you followed, this is years ago, the original Blair Witch had like the way that they hyped the movie as being real.
Yeah. I mean, I'm very familiar with it and everything.
Sure. Yeah. All of the ads leading up to it were like, this thing's a documentary, and they finally copped to it not being real. This obviously is not real, and I'm not gonna try to pitch it that way. But if people stumble across it and believe that it's real, that's fine.
Well, it sounds really fun. I mean, it's
totally.
It sounds different and unique, and kind of feels like an approach to crafting art or media in still in an interactive way when a lot of our media is so not interactive. And I wouldn't even include video games in that. Because you're still using a controller and reacting to things. Like if we're talking about iPads and phones and stuff like that, where it's just very minimal interaction.
Sure.
So that's actually, you have to go to some you have to put a little work in to get the full payout. So that's pretty cool. I like that. That's really interesting.
Yeah. If nothing else, it was a great means to completely escape from the world. while everything felt like it was kind of on fire. Like it's not now. You know what I mean? It's just normalized, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The eternal just burning mess behind us.
Absolutely.
At every given moment. Well, that's really cool. But now that you've kind of settled into doing booking through Flossless, cool name for that. It's just the thing that the dentist always tells you to do, regardless if you do it or not. And I'm just assuming that flossing is probably not a top tier important thing to do while you're on tour.
I try. I also like genetically I have like not enough teeth, so I try to keep up. I definitely have like more fillings than I feel like I ought to. Also, like, I don't know about other musicians out there, but I feel like a lot of us don't have insurance. Uh,
Don't have
so
any what?
don't have dental insurance.
I would believe probably no. You'd all
Yeah,
know.
right.
Do you go for the classic or like the little stick things?
I try. So there's a lot of guilt that comes with the stick things, because like while I believe that the majority of like climate destroying practices are like those at the top, like big corporations, like big damage, like single use plastic still like it still puts like a knot in my stomach.
Mm.
But yeah, so like when possible, my partner turned me on to these like supposedly compostable like corn or whatever based floss picks. I use those, but yeah, I don't know. I don't know how much better they actually are. I'm afraid it's a lie. You know what? I'm afraid it's greenwashing and that it's just
Right.
as bad, or not as good as they say. It's like it's so hard to know.
But beyond that, but like, kind of like what's like a day to day like for you doing the booking now, especially when you're on like a different coast from where you actually are booking.
So, okay, the one beautiful thing about currently being on the East Coast and booking shows on the West Coast is that if I sleep till noon, it's still only 9 a.m. out there, and I am not late answering emails.
That's true.
Uh, that is probably the biggest perk. The downside is if there's any confusion night of show about settlement, I'm getting a call at like 4 in the morning here.
Yeah.
Between 3 and 4, which, it's just making me be way more thorough with all of my notes so those questions don't happen. Dialing things in a little bit more. And I mean, I'm not going to be out here full time. I'm definitely going to bounce back and forth. The plan at this point, I hate snow. It's like my nemesis. Uh, and temperatures below about 30 degrees. So the plan is to be back in Oregon during winter into early spring, and then I'll come back out this way. We'll see how long that holds out. We've got a record to work on this fall. Hopefully that happens. That can happen before I leave. Hopefully it doesn't keep me here into the snowy season. But we'll play it by ear.
Don't ever move to New York.
Yeah, no, I know. My partner lives like just outside of Chicago, and
Oh my God. Yeah. The weather
yeah,
there is like insane.
no, totally. I was in the last 2 winters actually. I've gone to Arizona. I'm
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
preemptively snowbirding. I was talking to my partner, and she like, they have 2 dogs, she and her other partner, and they were walking. She had to walk both dogs that day, and by the end of the second loop around the block, she was experiencing minor hypothermic symptoms
Oh my God.
because it was like -20. Uh, like, dude, like that's not hospitable. Like, it's not. Why do people live there? But like, I mean, not to like shit talk a whole region, but it is kind of how I feel when I'm in any of the Great Lakes states. Um,
Yeah, it's crazy. My partner's she's from Arizona, so we've been out there a
hmm,
couple of times, and like I've said it a lot on here, but it's just like amazing out there.
yeah.
Like I
Have
love
you
the desert.
have you ever been there during like the hottest parts of summer though?
No,
Yeah,
excuse me. No,
that's the trick. Don't visit in July and August so you can still enjoy
yeah,
it.
we went during the holidays when it was actually
Oh
like
yeah, that's
cold, but like
yeah,
not frigid like it is out in the Northeast because it's
sure.
all covered in humidity and it's just generally like wet all the time. So it's like northern Florida.
Oh yeah, no, totally.
No, we went to Vegas in the summer and that was
Hmm.
dumb, but
That was like this that Primitive Man tour. Not so much P Man, they were chill, but everyone else was pretty upset at the heat in Vegas. It was like 112 the day we were there, and just like during load in, everyone's just like, fuck this, I hate this. And I was just like, this is fine. What's wrong with you? Like, it's a dry heat. I was literally that fucking asshole. It's like,
I feel like I was like, yeah, it's really not that bad. And then like when you're standing out there for like more than 20 minutes, you're like, all right, this is like pretty ridiculous.
sure, yeah,
But you can breathe.
exactly, yeah.
Yeah,
That's the thing.
and I mean, like, I saw Primitive Man play outside, so like,
Yeah.
they're probably like, yeah, we know what it's like.
Oh yeah,
It's
definitely.
hot.
Yeah. Yeah, they're long suffering, man. They're road dogs. They like I did like there were days where you could tell like everyone else was like fuck this and like because that just happens and they that's not the temperament of that band. They're like they're there for it.
Oh yeah, they're badass. Are there days where you find yourself liking one thing over the other, and you're like, man, I'm fucking tired of it? But I guess not, because you can do them at the same time.
What do you
Like
mean?
in terms of like booking shows and playing shows.
Oh, I
Are
mean,
there-
obviously, I would definitely rather play shows. Like at the end of
Okay.
the day, booking, I mean, it's cool because it's adjacent to music. It's still like in that realm, but it is still work. And especially working in a small scene, there's a lot of picking battles. Like, do I take this opportunity to try and teach this person?
Mm-hmm.
Like this is a teaching opportunity. Am I going to be like this condescending old asshole booker if I'm like, hey, you can't do this? Because it happens, I don't know, sometimes 30 or 40 times in an afternoon. Sometimes it's just like, you know what, like I'm just getting through the day. There are definitely days where it's like, yeah, I'm not doing the bare minimum, but I'm not going to be everyone's friend. I'm not going to be helpful. I'm not going to be a resource per se beyond like what's necessary because the workload is so heavy that you just have to get through the day. Booking right now, it's just like cancellations are like so much more common between people
Mm-hmm.
getting COVID, things breaking, things tours just having to cancel because something is for whatever reason it's not like maybe financially viable or whatever. It's a little bit more of a slog right now, and like getting back from tour and like catching up. I finally got to the point where like my day in day out was kind of consistent again and not like 10 to 12-hour days. And I was just like, yeah, I'm ready to be back out on the road now. I don't like this anymore.
Run
And now,
away.
yeah, now fast forward a couple of weeks, and now I'm like, it's fine. It's like
Mm-hmm.
I would still rather do this than almost any other job I've done because it's like it's still in the same world. Like you'll have like a bad day or something will be like a little bit like I don't know, it'll feel a little bit more like a trudge. And then like the next email you open is from like someone you've toured with or like a homie basically. So it's
Mm-hmm.
like I don't know, it's just it feels friendlier and it's like still in the same wheelhouse. And honestly, to a certain extent, it like it helps feed my own tours and the opportunity to return favors to people who've helped me out when I'm on the road is a big part of why I keep doing it.
In regards to that, though, kind of like a two-part question. Like,
Sure.
what is a weird, wild experience you've had on the road?
Honestly, like I'm not really off top. Like I'm drawing a blank. I know there's shit. I know shit's happened. All I can really think of is like the weird minor inconveniences of like this particular hotel hold on my card took a month and a half to clear. Things like that. Gosh, yeah, I weird shit on the road. I'm honestly like it's at this point it feels so normalized. Like maybe it's just because like I'm still a little bit like numb, because it does. It becomes like such a day in day out. You're like
Mm-hmm.
you get up, you either go to the Denny's or you go to a gas station. You drive for 6 to 10 hours. You play a show. You drive for 2 hours. You get in the hotel room. You repeat. Uh, um, God, yeah, I don't know. There were definitely less misadventures or whatever on these last two.
You
Yeah, I
feel
hate to be
like
like,
people are just being like more careful about things. I mean, the thing I keep seeing is like vans getting broken into, but that's not because
oh,
people are
sure.
being reckless or unsafe. It's just that these are the options. But
Yeah,
like,
no,
do you
totally.
think
This
there's
is
just
actually coincidentally, this Body Void tour was the first tour I've ever been on with other people where there wasn't a break-in. Literally every tour I've ever been on where there was another person, there's just been like it because like, once you once you're obviously on tour, you become kind of a target. The other two tours I've been on with Body Void, we've had a break in of one kind or another, and neither of them were terribly serious. This last back in November when we were out with Uniform and Portrayal of Guilt, somebody broke into our trailer and stole like a box of merch and and like a tiny terror head, like a an orange like the small like lunchbox size base head.
Hmm.
And then when we were in the UK, the tour previous, somebody like first night we hadn't even played a show yet. Somebody punched the little wing window out of the van and like stole like change from the center column and like some personal belongings of the driver. Uh, like it's like that's not even, like, that guy's at work, man. Come on.
Uh,
It's not cool, London. It's not cool. It was actually maybe Newcastle. I can't remember now, but
they took his pens.
right. Took his pens, took his iron brew, you know.
They took his Maggie Thatcher card.
Shit.
Well, on the flip side of that, just because I went to go see Author and Punisher over the weekend, and I grabbed a set list that was written on.
Oh, I saw that on your Instagram.
Just like
Literally
the side
like,
of a box, like just
yep.
a box lid or something like that. And well, that's where it's living now.
Sometimes that's the paper that's available.
Like, I know people say there's a coin shortage, but I think there might be a paper shortage. But like, what's the weirdest thing you've written a set list on, or is it just like because you see bands that have like the nice ones that have like the font and everything's typed out or whatever, and then you see like, all right, this is just like a piece of paper, we ripped it out of a notebook, oh, grab that piece of cardboard, whatever.
So the beauty of being in a band that plays long songs, Body Void doesn't have set lists on stage.
That's very fair.
So far the 3 tours that I've been out with them, like we've done like a 30 to 35 minute set. The first tour that was 2 songs. And then the last 2 we've done 3 songs. And so like once in a while there'll be like we'll like lock eyes and be like, you want to do Fawn instead of Wound? You want, as like, but like we know what 2 or 3 songs we're playing. We're heading in a direction where the songs are getting a little shorter, so we might actually have to write shit down. We'll see. And then with Entresol, with my own stuff, like it's usually structured in a way where it's seamless. There's like kind of never ending backing tracks. So to a certain extent, like the actual set list is sort of built in for me. But I've definitely seen some interesting ones. There was a band that I can't remember the name of the band, this psych band that I booked in Eugene. There was only one on stage, and it was like by the bass player's foot, and it was on the inside of like this neon orange frisbee, which I assume they didn't do a new one every night. I assume that's for the whole tour, but hopefully they don't like get drunk and play a pickup game of frisbee in the street or something.
They probably like flung it out on the last night.
Lose their set list. Oh yeah, sure. Totally.
Yeah, so it's just funny. I'm just now acquiring a small collection of cardboard that has things on it, and I'm like, I look at it and I'm like, one part of me is just like, this is just a piece of cardboard. Like, you don't need this. But another part of me is like, you got the thing from the band that the guy wrote the thing on.
Totally. I used to have a collection like kind of down the side of my fridge of Post-its that was all different thank you notes from bands that had crashed on the floor in that house. And I went back to visit not that long ago, and some of them are still there. I'm not really sure why the current roommates are like, we're going to hang on to, I don't know, some of these, but fuck that band. We're throwing away the pathology thank you note. What? I don't understand.
This wasn't even a thank you note. This was a grocery list.
Right.
Besides the upcoming album and your book project, do you have anything else in the works?
There's always a bunch of ideas. There's like, it's that thing where like, I'm very much the type of person who like, once I set out to accomplish a thing, I do. I just don't like to talk about them all too soon, just because like, then there's expectations. There might be a podcast, so we'll see. I have guests for a first season lined up, and as long as it goes well, that'll be a thing that happens maybe later this year, early next year. We'll see. But I don't want to give too much away yet.
Yeah.
And there's supposedly a new Entresol album in the works. I've been saying that for like a year. as things with Body Void ramp up, I spend less time on that project. At least that's how it's looking right now. So we'll see. For like the 12 people who listen to that band, it is still a thing that exists. I have not broken up with myself yet. There'll be new content. I mean, there's a Patreon. I have to. There's at least 8 people who are going to be really upset if a new album doesn't happen eventually.
Well, hopefully they don't hear this podcast.
We'll see.
Well, have you been listening to anything lately of note you've really been digging?
I've been listening to that new Haunted Horses album a lot. I mean, that's the big one. Basically, since it dropped, I haven't really stopped listening to that new Cremation Lily album. That's been like in my regular spins at least a couple of times a week. I don't know if you follow that project at all.
No, I'm not familiar with it at all.
It's like, it makes sense that someone who makes noise would listen to it.
Gotcha.
Kind of in the realm of like Amulets, if you're familiar.
I think this is a rabbit hole I've not gone down.
So Cremation Lily is on the Flenser as of this current record. He's based in the UK. He does like there's elements of like tape loop noise, ambient, and then like almost like sad boy beats and stuff. The new stuff has kind of taken this turn where it's like it's definitely not in that realm, but you can see that it's like a little bit influenced by it. Super, super cool stuff. And like the way that he does tape manipulation is interesting. He'll build a loop, he'll record content to the loop, and then sometimes he'll do stuff like sun bleach it or, anchor it underwater for like a week and then dry it out and then play that back as the backing track for something.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, so he gets like
physically like manipulating it.
Definitely like, using in some cases, very affected magnetic tape for different sounds, which is like right up my wheelhouse, right up my alley, right in my wheelhouse, something.
Yeah,
it's
like
it's multiple catchphrases at once. Yeah.
Right on. What have I been listening to? Obviously, new Body Void.
Cool.
The new horror album I really liked.
Oh yeah.
Probably the only thing I'll willingly listen to that has Corey Taylor on it, because I think I missed the boat on Slipknot.
Dude, you and me both. I saw that he was on the new album, and I'm like, that's weird. And then I'm like, the song's fine though. Okay, all right, chill.
Yeah.
Like, I definitely have a soft spot for horror. Anything that rides the line between hip hop and noise, like clipping, is pretty like special too.
Yeah, I have a friend who's a really big fan of clipping.
Word. Yeah, that last full length was really rad.
What else? I checked out that new Wormrot album, Hiss, because everyone was just saying it was great, and I really liked it. Like, pretty goddamn incredible. New Funeral Chic album, Roman Candle, was really good. Kind of like groovy thrash with a little bit of doom and some Rocky Erickson. VHS put out another album called Lenzi. Pretty good. Warthog, first time listen for me. Really like that too. I checked out Imperial Triumphant's new album.
Oh, how is that?
It's not for me. Like, it's like black metal math jazz, and I know there's a lot of love for them. They're really big in New York. They have a really cool aesthetic, but it's just like not really for me. But they are very good at what they do. So if that's something that you would be into, check it out.
We'll see. I really dug Vile Luxury, but I haven't kept up.
Yeah, I mean, Kenny G's on this album.
Really?
Yeah, like it's pretty wild. I was like,
that's insane, man. That's out there. It's like when it's like Michael McDonald being on that Thundercat record.
Yeah.
Like like what? I mean, it kind of makes sense once you hear it, but like, yeah, I don't know. That's interesting.
Exactly. I listened to Chat Pile because everyone said it was great, and
of course,
it's fucking great. And I really thought the new Beyonce album was pretty fantastic too.
That's been on my list to check out.
Yeah, it rules. I really, really liked it. Much different than Lemonade, which I also liked a lot. And then, in addition to going to see Author and Punisher, I don't know if you're familiar with them, but the opener was a solo noise act that wasn't familiar with, Trace Amount.
I'm not actually.
Oh, pretty cool. Like definitely some Nine Inch Nails influence there, but
You can see
very
that.
cool, very intense. I also went to go see Elder with Ruby the Hatchet and Dreadnought. It was nice to cross them off the list.
For
finally.
sure.
So that's what I've been listening to, and that's what I've been up to lately. And no shortage of shows. Probably a little bit of a shortage on funds to go to said shows.
That's so real.
Need that new paycheck to deposit.
Yeah, that's for real.
Um,
Yeah, no, if you dug that new Chat Pile album, you should definitely check out the Haunted Horses record. They're
all right, I will.
in a similar wheelhouse. I feel like Haunted Horses has a little bit more goth influence in there, but the bass player from Filth is Eternal plays in that band now as well. Used to be called Fucked and Bound, if you ever saw that.
Oh yeah. I managed to listen to that band when they were still Fucked and Bound, and
yeah.
I know that. Is it just because for like marketing purposes?
I actually don't. I don't have the story. I could see how that might be the reason, but I don't know. I'm not sure.
Yeah, I do remember like just when they were still Fucked and Bound, and then they became Filth is Eternal, and it doesn't really matter because like it's the same band.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, rad band.
Thank you for taking the time out of your day to come on the podcast and whatnot, and
for sure.
Chat
Thanks
about
for having me.
noise and booking and all the ups and downs and whatnot that go along with it. Where can people find you on the internet if they so choose to?
Gosh, I think maybe the easiest place is just I don't know. I guess the easiest place would just be Janys-Iren Faughn on Instagram. There's like there's redirects to everything else I have going on there, and I'm it may be my private, but I fucking friend everybody. I'm a hard person to stalk. I'm never in one place for very long, so I'm not too worried about it.
Right on. Yeah, and definitely listen to the new Body Void and follow Body Void and buy Body Void merch and listen to Entresol. Make it 13 people.
There you go. 13.
Well, thank you again, and that'll do it for this chapter of the diary.
Awesome. Cheers.